The NFL is largely a passing league. We as fans hear this all the time, and this statement mostly rings true. But what if you couldn't pass the ball on offense? Like, at all. And I don't mean metaphorically either. I mean it quite literally. Well, we saw that scenario play out in last year's NFC Championship game between the Eagles and the 49ers. Both quarterback Brock Purdy and his backup Josh Johnson left the game due to injury. And although Purdy did come back, he had a UCL tear in his arm, so he physically couldn't throw. But even with all the quarterback injuries, the Niners still threw the football 18 times. Besides, they were likely going to lose to a better Philadelphia team anyways. And looking into it further, it quickly becomes apparent that there are more extreme examples of teams either being unable to or unwilling to pass the ball on offense. In fact, there are even games where teams refuse to throw the ball any more than 3 times in a game. Yeah, you heard that right. There have been games where teams have thrown the ball 3 or less times on offense. In fact, since 1970, this has occurred twice. Funnily enough, both of these games happened in Buffalo. And even stranger, the team that threw the ball 3 times or less won both encounters. The first time something like this occurred was back in Week 3 of the 1974 season. The Buffalo Bills beat the New York Jets 16-12, with quarterback Joe Ferguson attempting only 2 passes on the day. He completed none. Luckily for Buffalo, Jets quarterback and future NFL Hall of Famer Joe Namath only completed 2 of 18 pass attempts and threw 3 interceptions. On the ground, the Jets offense was able to accrue a mind-boggling 139 yards and a single touchdown. So, at least in this case, it makes sense why Buffalo won this game. There wasn't really a need for Joe Ferguson to touch the football except to hand it off. It's that second game where a team attempted 3 or fewer passes that's much more interesting to look at. During the 2021 season on Monday Night Football, the New England Patriots actually only attempted 3 passes in a game, and they won. They somehow managed to beat a Buffalo Bills team that finished third in the league on offense, averaging 28.4 points per game. They beat a Buffalo Bills team that ended the year with both the best pass and rush defense in the league, that only allowed 272.8 yards and 17 points per game. And they beat this team at home. Sure, the Patriots made the playoffs in 2021, mostly led by their top 5 defense and top 10 rushing attack, but to win a game like this against what most people would say was an objectively superior Bills team, the same Bills team that would later beat this same Patriots team in a near perfect game against them in the playoffs in this same stadium? It's downright shocking. And 2 years after the fact, I still can't help but wonder how Bill Belichick and the Patriots were able to win a game like this. But then again, we're talking about Bill Belichick and the Patriots. And Bill Belichick is a guy who's won 8 Super Bowls and has appeared in 11 over the course of his career. Patriots as an organization have won 6 Super Bowls and have also appeared in 11. So winning is in this team's and this coach's DNA. Even so, the 2021 Patriots weren't exactly overflowing with talent on offense, and that's not factoring in the fact that they lost their Hall of Fame quarterback. So a result like this was certainly unexpected to see. However, keeping in mind the fact that Bill Belichick is coaching the Patriots, a result like this isn't impossible. And I'd actually argue that this particular game is one of Coach Belichick's finest. Winning in the modern NFL is hard enough, and winning without throwing the football is nearly impossible. So the fact that Coach Belichick was able to do something like this is a testament to his skill and his abilities. And when you think of the all-time great coaching performances, chances are this game isn't exactly top of mind. But I'd argue it should be. So with that being said, I want to take the time to really break down this game and look at what I think might just be Coach Belichick's finest hour in the modern NFL. And given the state of the Patriots right now, what might be the last gasp of true greatness we see from a Belichick coached team in New England for some time. So let's give this game the respect it deserves and analyze just how Bill Belichick and New England Patriots won a game while only attempting 3 passes on offense. This is Bill Belichick's finest hour, the 3-pass game. To really understand why this game turned out like it did, we first need to set the stage on which it will be played. It's year 2021 and it's week 13 in the NFL. The 7-4 Buffalo Bills are playing host to their division rival, the 8-4 New England Patriots, and first place is on the line. Weather reports going into this game are calling for extremely strong winds, exceeding 25 to 30 miles per hour, with gusts exceeding 50 miles per hour at times. Now, before we get any further, here's some fun facts about what happens to quarterback performances when they play in the wind. In 2020, it was found that when wind speeds go from under 10 miles per hour to over 20 miles per hour, the average quarterback completion percent dropped from 60.3% to around 54.7%. Touchdown percent dropped from 4.3% to 3.6%, and interception percent rose from 3% to 3.1%. Meanwhile, adjusted net yards per attempt dropped from around 5.8 to 4.6 yards. Overall, the main takeaway here is that quarterbacks are less efficient in the wind. Keep this in mind as we continue to discuss this game. Getting back on track here, the New England Patriots seem to have finally found their stride going into this game. The combination of legendary head coach Bill Belichick and 15th overall pick Mac Jones won their last 6 games going into Buffalo. Going into this game, the Patriots boasted one of the best defenses in the NFL, and along with a potent rushing attack, this team had the ability to win tough games. However, they had an average passing attack, and they were still looking to find their footing in that department. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills, led by head coach Sean McDermott and MVP candidate Josh Allen, had combined one of the best defenses in the league with a highly prolific offense, especially through the air. Notice how I specifically called out Buffalo's passing offense, despite the fact that they were 6th in the league as well in rushing that year, with 129.9 yards per game. Keep that in the back of your mind as well. It's also going to be important. If you go back and watch parts of this game, it quickly becomes apparent that the Buffalo Bills knew exactly what the New England Patriots wanted to do on offense all night long. When their defense was on the field, they consistently loaded the box, daring New England to throw, knowing full well that they couldn't. After all, it'd be nearly impossible for New England to throw given the weather anyways. The wind was gusting at 50 miles per hour, and remember, quarterbacks are less efficient when the wind gusts at 20 miles per hour. Besides, Mac Jones was a rookie, and rookies tend to make mistakes in critical games. And he doesn't exactly have the cannon of an arm Josh Allen has, so it's not like he's throwing through the wind. Besides, if you look at the film for this game, it's not like New England was exactly being subtle about their intentions on offense either. For most of this game, they were basically running a jumbo set, trotting out 6 linemen and multiple tight ends along the line of scrimmage to block. But despite this, I have to imagine that the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, and even Bill Belichick and the Patriots coaching staff, didn't know that the Patriots would only attempt 3 passes over the course of 60 minutes of football. But as the game wore on, with the wind getting worse and snow beginning to fall in Buffalo, the Patriots likely made an in-game decision to just keep running out of necessity. And it's not like the Patriots' offense was some hyper-efficient machine all night either. Sure, they ran for 222 yards on the ground and averaged 4.8 yards per carry, but they only scored 14 points. And besides, around 29% of their rushing yards came on a 64-yard Damian Harris touchdown in the first quarter. Take that score and the 2-point conversion they got afterwards away, and the Patriots averaged around 3.4 yards per carry and put up only 6 points on offense. That's pretty bad if you ask me. The Bills' defense more than did its job in this game and put their team in a position to win. However, the reason why this game is a Belichick coaching masterpiece isn't because of the Patriots' offensive performance, let alone their offensive game plan. It's because of the defensive line. So, what exactly did Bill Belichick and his defense do to shut down the Bills? Remember, Buffalo had a much more effective passing attack going into this game than New England. And this was particularly true when attacking downfield. Plus, this is Josh Allen at quarterback. He can chuck a football 70 yards in his sleep. Surely, the Patriots couldn't afford to ignore this when game planning, right? Well, if you watch the game again, you'll see Belichick completely ignore the threat of Buffalo's downfield passing attack, at least for the most part. In fact, for much of the game, he hardly had any of his defenders lined up any further than 5 to 7 yards from the line of scrimmage. He was essentially inviting the Bills to pass the ball deep all night long, knowing that they had Josh Allen at quarterback. The question is, why? It's not like Bill Belichick to actively do something like this, especially considering how strong Buffalo's passing offense was attacking the deeper part of the field that year. But then you remember the conditions the game is being played in, and things start to make just a bit of sense. Essentially, what's happening is Bill Belichick's making a bet, which honestly is not something I would think he would normally do. He was essentially betting that the weather conditions would be so bad that it would actively inhibit the Bills' passing offense to the point where they couldn't throw the ball. And he was right. When you think about it, betting on the fact that Buffalo wouldn't be able to throw the ball normally in this game, even with Josh Allen at quarterback, is not as bad of a bet as it might seem. Looking at how the goalposts and flags are moving, it's clear the wind is blowing along the direction of play, not perpendicular to it. And simple physics would say that if Josh Allen threw the ball like he normally did and was throwing against the wind, the speed of the ball would essentially be reduced by 25 to 30 miles per hour. If he threw with the wind, the speed would increase by 25 to 30 miles per hour. Of course, these calculations are much more complex than what I'm making them out to be, but you get the point. Bill Belichick essentially realized that every throw Josh Allen would make would be affected by the wind, and the Buffalo offense would be out of rhythm as a result. And remember, quarterbacks are less efficient when the wind speed exceeds 20 miles per hour. In Buffalo, the wind was gusting over 50 miles per hour, and it was snowing. When you account for this, it seems almost certain that any attempt at throwing the ball, particularly throwing it deep, would end in a disaster. So, with this in mind, how did Josh Allen do throwing the football this night? Long story short, not very good. Josh Allen went 15 for 30 for 145 yards and a touchdown. There were several points throughout this game where he threw deep, but the weather inhibited his receiver's ability to catch what would normally be a routine throw, even if it hit them in the numbers. The timing was off for Buffalo, in no small part due to the weather. Saying that this wasn't Allen's best game is an understatement. Bill Belichick gambled on this exact outcome occurring, and it paid off for him throughout this game. So, going into the game, Bill Belichick is banking on the fact that Buffalo isn't going to be able to throw the ball effectively outside of maybe short passes. This is largely because of the weather. But what about running the ball? I mentioned earlier that Buffalo ended the year averaging 129.9 yards per game on the ground. And that's good for 6th in the league. Surely, if the weather's preventing them from throwing normally, the Bills can just lean into their top 10 rushing attack like the Patriots did. It'd be an ugly way to win, but it would work, right? After all, a win is a win in the NFL. But before we discuss this any further, there's something you need to know about the 2021 Buffalo Bills. And that is that they actually weren't a very good rushing team. Rather, they were a very bad rushing team. Yeah, I know that contradicts what I said earlier. And yeah, the Bills were ranked 6th in the league, and they had 129.9 yards per game on the ground. But those numbers are actually quite misleading. Josh Allen was a very good rusher in 2021. He averaged 6.3 yards per carry and 44.9 yards per game on the ground, with most of that coming from designed QB runs and scrambling after pass plays broke down. So, if we were to remove that production from Buffalo's rushing offense as a whole, the rest of the team would only average 85 yards per game. That's good for 31st in the league, only ahead of the Houston Texans, whose running backs averaged 83.6 rushing yards per game. The Texans went 4-13 in 2021. There's a reason that the Bills drafted James Cook in the second round in the 2022 draft. They did not have a very good rushing attack. What this means in the context of this particular game is that when push came to shove, the Bills could not run the ball normally like the Patriots could. Or, quite frankly, any other team not named the Houston Texans. Bill Belichick understood this fact very well as he was game planning, and this is where his second gamble of the night came into play. He knew that if he stopped Josh Allen's ability to scramble while also defending shorter passes, Buffalo wouldn't have an offense. What were they going to do? Run the ball? Removing Allen from that equation essentially meant that Buffalo had the worst rushing attack in the league. And it's not like they were able to throw it deep either. The weather made that nearly impossible. But what type of defensive scheme could effectively defend short passes and contain the quarterback's rushing ability at the same time? If you commit too much into defending the short pass, you expose rushing lanes to Josh Allen. If you go ahead and commit a defender to focus on Allen, the Bills will have an advantage in the passing game. Then they just need to dink and dunk their way down the field, hitting the open man for chunk plays. Normally, in this type of situation where teams have to game plan against a mobile quarterback, they essentially play a guessing game. And if they guess wrong, it ends up poorly for them. But if you watch the film of this game closely, you can see that Coach Belichick actually found an answer, and a pretty consistent one at that. And he found a scheme that would let him cover both options the Bills had at the same time. What's more is that, in hindsight, after rewatching this game, I've come to realize that the answer Bill Belichick and the Patriots came up with is actually a pretty obvious one, too. So, with that being said, what exactly did Bill Belichick do here? Now, before we get into this any further, there are a couple football terms that I want to discuss. These are cover one and QB spy. To basically give a quick rundown, a cover one defense means that there's one defender, usually a safety, who lines up much further behind the rest of the defense and from the line of scrimmage. The distance they usually line up is around 10 to 15 yards back, but it can vary by scheme. This player's job is to primarily help in pass coverage if a receiver has a deeper route, and to stay further back to ensure no players break into the open of the field. Cover one is a really effective coverage against shorter passes in the run, as the 10 other defenders usually can line up closer to the line of scrimmage, and depending on what the offense does, can react appropriately. However, it's not as good against deeper passes as there is only one defender further down the field, and it can struggle against mobile quarterbacks who can take advantage of the fact that everyone is clumped together near the line of scrimmage and break out into the open. A QB spy or rat player is a player who the defense designates before the snap to follow the quarterback rather than defend a receiver down the field. If the quarterback throws the ball near the area of the field where the QB spy is, the spy is still able to play in pass coverage, mostly as a zone defender. But teams mostly use QB spies to prevent mobile quarterbacks from running. However, if you do have a committed QB spy, you could get hurt in the passing game, as you have less defenders down the field. With our little lesson done now, let's get back to the game. What did Bill Belichick exactly do here that stopped Buffalo's offense? Watching the game, you can see that Bill Belichick is employing a cover one concept for much of the night. The broadcast on ESPN even says as much, multiple times. But what they didn't pick up on, or at least cover, is that Bill Belichick wasn't running a normal cover one concept. A normal cover one still would have exposed the Patriots, giving Josh Allen the space to scramble, as the secondary would have been preoccupied with the pass catchers and relatively close to the line of scrimmage. But at the same time, if they had a committed QB spy, which some cover one defenses do, then the Bills would have had an advantage in the passing game just based on numbers alone, which essentially negates the advantages cover one has in the first place. So what did the Patriots do here? What was Bill Belichick's answer? Well, to put it bluntly, he did something very uncommon and, quite frankly, dangerous, that most coaches would never have thought to do. He actually had the cover one safety in his defense double as the QB spy. Normally, when a team has a cover one zone with the QB spy, they have a safety backing coverage to help contain the deep pass, and the second player, who's usually a linebacker, spying the quarterback. Running a cover one defense with a spy in this manner lets the defense still cover shorter passes and run plays with the rest of the players, while ensuring that if the quarterback starts to run, there is someone following him. It's the concept that most teams run when playing cover one against a mobile quarterback. But again, it has its risks. You have 3 guys on the line of scrimmage, the offensive linemen are going to be able to block them easily, and the quarterback is going to have all day to direct someone open. If you have 4 guys rushing, then it leaves only 5 defenders to cover 5 potential receivers. And if one of those receivers is a guy like, I don't know, Stephon Diggs, chances are they're going to get open quickly in a one-on-one matchup. What's worse is that you can't double up on any of the other receivers either, because then there's definitely going to be someone who's not covered at all. But by having the safety play both the role as the cover one drop and the QB spy at various times throughout this game, Bill Belichick left his defenders free to cover the short passes and the run. By doing this, he allowed the Patriots defense to react to any short yard passing situation and to drop back in coverage quickly with a numbers advantage. Yet it also enabled him to contain Josh Allen in the pocket and prevent him from getting out into the open field and running the ball. It even gave him the option to double up on receivers if needed. What's more is that since the safety is doubling as the QB spy, they can read what the quarterback is doing at all times. If the quarterback decides to throw, such as Josh Allen did on this play, the safety is able to see where the ball goes and is able to move up to help make the tackle before the receiver gets too far. Now, in this particular case, Devin McCourty was too focused on Josh Allen, so he doesn't react fast enough once he sees that he threw the ball. And as a result, the Buffalo Bills scored a touchdown. But overall, the concept holds true. And if the quarterback were to run, like Josh Allen did at the beginning of the fourth quarter, the safety is able to follow the quarterback and move up to make the tackle, which in this case, Devin McCourty does. This cover one spy concept also allows Bill Belichick's defense to much more effectively stop the run when Buffalo decides to hand the ball off, such as on this run in the first quarter, or on this play in the third quarter. In this case, the Patriots ran a cover one disguised as a cover two, with the safety coming up the blitz. Throughout the game, Bill Belichick was playing very heavily into the strengths of cover one as a defense, particularly against the run and the short pass, by employing this particular concept. But it's not a flawless defense. Using your cover one safety as a spy can be really risky, especially against a team that's great throwing deep like the 2021 Buffalo Bills. The safety has to play close enough to see what the quarterback is doing, while also assuring that they're deep enough to at least try to cover passes 10 yards or more down the field. It essentially leaves a huge window of opportunity for offenses to bait the safety into committing on either covering a quarterback run or the deep pass and punish them with the other. There is a reason teams normally don't do this, because 99% of the time, it's a terrible idea to do so. But remember, this was not a normal game. The Bills couldn't effectively run their deep passing offense due to the weather. This meant that the Patriots were relatively safe to have Devin McCourty function more as a QB spy, while also remaining deep enough to dissuade any notion of the Bills throwing the ball too far down the field. Unlike the Patriots, the Bills were not built to run the ball normally, and thus all the Patriots needed to do was prevent Allen from running. Belichick knew this and took full advantage of this to beat a Bills team that proved itself far better than his own later in the season. He did this utilizing a unique defensive scheme concept that would only work in the specific conditions that the Patriots and Bills found themselves in this game. There's a reason Bill Belichick doesn't employ this in the other games against the Buffalo Bills. He knew that it wouldn't work in those games because he didn't find himself in the same conditions that he found himself in this game. But Bill knew that this scheme would work in this particular instance and abused it. Utilizing this unorthodox cover one scheme that would only really work in this atrocious Buffalo weather, Bill Belichick made Josh Allen, one of the most electric players in the league, completely one-dimensional. He completely neutralized his ability to run and dared him to consistently hit shorter passes against an abnormal cover one look, which he wasn't able to do. Bill Belichick dared the Bills to find anyone else who could have been somewhat successful at running the football aside from their quarterback to keep his defense honest and force them out of this cover one scheme, knowing full well that they couldn't. Bill Belichick found the only way to win this game, and he ran with it. And that, at least in my opinion, is really what makes this game such a great coaching performance. But that's what Bill Belichick always does. Coach Belichick took advantage of everything he could to the logical extreme. He came up with and then executed the perfect defense to take advantage of the weather conditions he found himself in. He neutralized the Bills and what they could do. He dared them to do something that he knew they couldn't. So it's really no surprise when you think about it that the Patriots won. All while their offense attempted 3 passes in a game total in 2021. But it's not as if Bill Belichick hasn't done this type of thing before. All you need to do to find another example of this is look back at Super Bowl 53, where he held the LA Rams to a mind-boggling 3 points in what became the lowest scoring game in Super Bowl history. But the 2018 Patriots weren't outmatched like the 2021 Patriots were, which makes this victory all the more special in my opinion. It's Bill Belichick's finest hour in the modern NFL, and perhaps his last stand in a league that seems like it's beginning to leave him and his style of football behind. It's the Patriots' last truly great game, and it shows just why Bill Belichick is not only the greatest coach of all time, but the game's greatest defensive mind too. And with retirement potentially looming within the next few years for him, and the Patriots in a state of relative uncertainty, we might not get another moment like this from Coach Belichick. But then again, this is Bill Belichick, so who knows? And as for me, I'm just hoping that he's got another game like this one in it. Just not against my team.